Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I have such fun projects for you today for Watercolor Wednesday. I can barely contain myself, and I know I'm talking a mile a minute because I'm so excited. We are going to paint like our computer printers print. We're going to use the CYMK color system, which means we're going to use cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. For some reason, K stands for black. I don't know why. Probably because there's a K at the end of the word, and calling it B would be confusing with blue. I don't know, but that's what we're going to use for colors. And you can get some really cool colors this way. Now in our demos, we're going to paint these two paintings. We're going to paint this super duper easy galaxy painting. I mean, seriously, you are not going to believe how easy this is. And we're going to paint this sunset, which is so tropical and not looking like winter, which I love. And we'll go over some more stuff about the colors when we're doing those demos. But the thing I wanted to show you first, so that you can paint along at home, is what these colors are all about. So magenta. Magenta is a cool undertone red. It's very transparent. It stains, so it's kind of tough to lift up your colors if you do make a mistake, but it's very transparent, gives you a nice flat wash. Cyan, and that is PR122 for the red. If you are using something else in your stash, look for a nice bright clean red that's kind of cool, almost pinkish. Cyan is kind of like phthalo blue. It's a little bit less intense and less greeny. It's a little more neutral, but it does definitely have a cool undertone versus a warm undertone like, say, cobalt blue or ultramarine would have. And then we have lemon yellow. Now these colors are all from the Lucas line of paints from our sponsor, jerrysartorama.com. These are found in the 12 color set or their larger sets. And I also added some ivory black, because the black that comes with this is actually a Payne's gray. And I wanted to make sure I had a single pigment color there. So these three colors are all super transparent, staining, clean, clear colors with cool undertones. And then the black is more of an opaque, granulating color. So it's going to give us some texture, which is really useful when we do our galaxy painting. So I did the color wheel just using the three colors there, and you can see the colors that they mix, the secondary colors, which are in these circles, are, you know, they're definitely usable. So we got a fairly decent purple when we used the cool red and the cool blue, but if I took that cool red and added a warm blue, such as ultramarine blue, that's what ultramarine blue looks like right there. That's the cyan, what we're going to use today. If I mix the ultramarine blue with that red, I get a brighter, more vibrant purple. If I mix this cool blue and this cool yellow together, I get a lovely green. But if I mixed the ultramarine blue and this warmer yellow, I would get more of a mossy olive green. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what the other warmer versions of these colors would do when you mix them together. And of course, if we mix our cool red and cool yellow, we get kind of like a peachy orange, not super vibrant. But if I use a warmer yellow and a warmer red, I'll get a more vibrant orange. So that's why I recommend using, for general purposes, using a split primary palette, so you can get those really vibrant colors. But sometimes it's just fun to do something different, and that's what we're going to do today. So with the addition of black, by the way, since these are all cool colors, if we mix them all together, we tend to get more grays. These are all mixed with all three colors. Then we do browns, although if you do more yellow and red, you will get a browner color like I did on the bottom half of that swatch there. So it's definitely possible. And then I did an interesting experiment here. I took magenta and added black and painted that. And this one was all three colors, just more magenta. On this one, I did cyan blue and black. And here I did all three colors, just more cyan blue. And over here with the yellow, I did yellow and black. And then here I did all three colors, not black, obviously. I'm not putting black on those, but just more yellow. And I got the exact same color. But the mixtures with the black, because black is granulating, that PBK9, the ivory black, granulates, I got this cool texture in those washes. Now here I made a gray with just my three primaries, three primaries over here, and here I used the black and I kind of pulled them together in the middle, and you can see that how smooth and flat my wash there is because I use those transparent, cool undertone staining colors versus my black, which is more granular. So different pigments give you different textures, and I just want to show you the pigment numbers on these other two colors in case you're kind of scrounging through your stash to find something that will work. This is PB15:3, similar similar, same pigment as your phthalo blue. This is just a little bit less aggressive and a little less green. And then PY3, which is your Hansa yellow light. So if you have that, that's totally fine. So just find 3 primaries that have cool undertones, and you should be good to go to play along. If you don't have this Lucas set that I'm using, I will link it down below because they are a sponsor. And if you want that set, then you can find it as well. So without further ado, we've gone over some of the basics on these colors. We're going to get into the painting demos, and I'll talk a little bit more about these colors as we proceed. So without further ado, let's paint some fancy things that other people will think are totally hard and will know is wicked easy. So let's get to it. I started off by taping down the borders in my sketchbook, and this is a brand new sketchbook, and I thought doing this in kind of a square format would be cool. It kind of reminded me of an old Polaroid. And I'm starting off by wetting the paper and then dripping in some of the cyan, and then mixing some of the cyan with my magenta to make a violet and adding that in as well. You'll notice how well those paint colors flow because those are transparent colors and the pigments are really tiny, and that helps them just kind of flow and move and groove and travel along the paper. I'm adding more and more paint, just letting them mix and mingle and kind of flow together. What I'm going for is this colorful kind of like bursts of gases and stars in the sky. I think this photo I'm using was from NASA. I'll try to link it up down below. I did find it on Unsplash, and basically I want to layer up my colors, and then I'm adding in some black around the border. After I have a lot of color in there, I'm putting on some kosher salt because I thought that might give me those kind of like gassy bursts. It almost looks like clouds, but it's not really clouds. It's just kind of that, I just think it's all those layers of stars and things like that. And now I'm using my heat tool to speed up the drying. Now you will get a better, more granular look if you just let it dry and walk away, but the only granular pigment I have is the black, so I really didn't think it was going to make that big of a difference. And since I'm using staining colors, the salt's not going to have as much as an effect as it would if I was using a granulating color such as ultramarine blue. I brushed away any extra salt before adding my next layer of colors. I'm going in with some yellow and some magenta and just basically trying to build up my color intensity. And I did not pre-wet the paper before this layer because I didn't want to dilute my paint, and I wanted what I put down to be a little more true when it dries. The wetter your paper is, the more of a color shift you're going to get between wet and dry. I'm also tipping my sketchbook around and letting the paints flow a little bit, and I'm using that black to go in there and add kind of like little dark chunks in the in between the areas of color to kind of give it that cellular celestial look. I'm also flicking on some colors because that will give it kind of that starry far away look, and I'm shaking that sketchbook around and really helping that paint move because I don't want to see brush strokes. I really want it to almost look like it just happened, so it looks really natural. Any place I have a puddle, I'm blotting off the big, puddles so I don't get blooms. And I did try to lift out a few of the kind of brighter areas that you would have around like clusters of stars. And I'm going in with another layer of color just to kind of build up the intensity. And at this point, you can end up just kind of fussing quite a bit. I probably could have stopped before that final layer and it would have been fine, but it's really fun to play. You have to be careful you don't overwork it because that's so easy to do. And now I'm using a toothbrush with some of the paint, the pure colors, just the magenta and yellow and blue, and I'm flicking some of the color on with the toothbrush, and that pure color is going to give me that really bright look. I'm lifting out anywhere I want it a little bit lighter, and then I'm going in with the heat tool to dry it. Now of course you could step away and just let nature take its course for drying, but I was in a hurry and curious to see how it was going to turn out, so I didn't want to wait. Now, if you wanted to keep this a pure watercolor, before you started painting, you could spatter on masking fluid and let it dry. But I didn't do that. I'm going to use white gouache. You could also use white acrylic paint. Just use your acrylic paint brushes so you don't damage your watercolor brushes. I'm using a spattering tool to get this really fine spray of stars in the sky. You could carefully do that with a fan brush or a toothbrush like I'm doing there. I like to use a toothbrush for clusters, and I like an all-over spatter with a spattering tool. And then I like to to flick on some paint with a round brush for the bigger, closer stars. Now, after letting that dry completely, I decided to tap in some larger, closer stars, and you can keep them round, or you can, you know, pull little bursts off of them if you want to make them look a little bit more stylized. It's completely up to you. I kind of felt like I wanted a little bit more of a whimsical look, mostly because I had a couple stars too close together and I thought it made the blob look a little like uneven and weird. So I did end up just pulling little kind of a, what do you call it, little burst off the stars, little star beams or twinkles or whatever off the edge, just to make them look a little bit a little more stylized. And if you do want to tap in some more shadows, you can, but I would kind of leave it after you put the white on so you don't get mud. And there you can see the finished picture. I did end up having to scrub out some of the paint that leaked underneath. I just did that with water and a fairly stiff brush. And then of course those colors stained a bit, so I did go in and paint a little white gouache on top of the stain, just so it would look neat and tidy, because it was the first page of a new sketchbook. I decided to try this other washi tape for this page, and it did work a lot better as far as keeping my borders clean. Now I'm starting off with yellow because I'm doing a sunset, and I find that if I start with my lightest color, I have much better results. And then I went in with a mix of the magenta and yellow, so I had kind of like an orange, and I'm lifting out the little sun, the sun itself as it's setting. I wanted that almost to be white, so I lifted it out fairly shortly after painting because those colors stain. And now I'm going in with more magenta and also a purple mix that is the magenta and the cyan. And I'll try to link this photo down below as well so you can have it. I basically cropped into a photo I found on Unsplash. I cropped just right into the sunset portion because I really wanted that square vantage point, and I thought that would look really fun for this video, and also in my new square sketchbook, which I thought would be fun. Now these three colors work excellent for doing sunsets. I didn't have an issue of things getting too green like sometimes you have when you're working in with your yellow. Even though there's a cool yellow and a cool blue there, I still was able to manage keeping it out of the green. You can also make some really nice neutralized gray clouds with these three colors, and it was just a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend a sunset as a project with the CYMK color palette family here. I think it's it just gives you such a fun, easy way to play with this color palette. Because the colors are transparent, like I mentioned before, you're very unlikely to get mud. And sometimes when you're doing skies, especially if it's a bit of a delicate coloring, you will tend to get into muddy, murky areas. But keeping your colors transparent with cool undertones, it just wants to avoid making mud. So I just think that's kind of helpful for beginners. Now here I wanted to do a side loading technique, and I used this mimic brush, but I think I should have used a golden Taklon brush because it would have held together a little bit more. I feel like the faux fur mimic brushes, they act a lot like fur, and they really need to be quite wet to hold together. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're painting this at home. Now my next layer, I want it to be opaque, like opaque black, so I'm just using the black on its own and filling in that closer foreground area, and I'm painting in the palm trees also with a nice opaque black. So that was super easy because I didn't have to try to make a really dark black out of my primaries. That's typically what I do when I'm doing like a sunset. I'll pick three colors and then I will make my black from those three colors. But because of the kind of more delicate nature of the cyan, it's not a like real in your face color, and the delicate nature of the magenta, it just doesn't make a super dark black. You can make a dark gray, but it doesn't give you that super dark black that you kind of want for an image like this. But so fun to paint like a printer. I do hope you give it a try because I just thought it was so much fun and something different, and just kind of get your brain into a new space for a bit when you're creating art. I want to thank our sponsor, jerrysartorama.com, for sponsoring this video today. You can find the paints and brushes I used from them down below in the video description, and I will link up to another video where I talk about a split primary palette in case you're interested in that too. Or you can check out my class, Essential Tools and Techniques for Watercolors, where I go really in depth into color theory and color mixing. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.